That's right.
Meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Isn't that
Hmm.
amazing that you can do that?
It is. William Richardson, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, Paul. So, Paul, let's talk about you, shall we?
Hey, Bill, let's not talk about me. Let's talk about you, Bill.
Okay, maybe we can do both.
Okay, cool. Tell me about yourself, Bill. Can you describe in great detail the anatomy of your body?
Pretty good detail. Yeah.
Go ahead. Let's hear it.
I don't think that'd be very fun, Paul.
Yeah.
Maybe we could talk about things going on in the world today.
Oh, you want to jump right into the juicy stuff, Bill. You want to
Yeah.
get right into the good stuff, Bill.
We're limited on time, Paul.
Bill, we're going to talk.
We're gonna talk
You know what we're going to talk about? We're going
life.
to talk about your Call of Duty addiction, Bill. You know? You just can't wait to get back on. I just got to get back on that Call of Duty. You can't have one conversation with Paul.
That's right. That's right.
Go ahead, Bill. What do you got on your mind?
Well, did you see that we bombed? I think was it Syria?
I heard about it. I heard
Syrian
about it.
forces, maybe. I don't really know much about it. I was wondering if you did. I know your dad follows that a lot closer than you or I do, and he's got his own opinions on it. Has he talked to you about that at all?
He has not talked to me about that specifically, but I did have an in depth conversation on what he believes today.
Oh,
But then again, I have in depth conversations about that very many times with my dad.
what were you guys talking about today specifically in terms of what he believes?
What were we talking about? We kind of got into an ethical conversation, and I said, well, what grounds do you have to say one thing is right and one thing's wrong? Because he says, oh, these people, that are doing all these things, pulling the strings, they're unethical or they're evil, and,
Right.
you know,
Not
and
agendas.
yes. So, I just basically just said, well, based off what grounds? And you know, so he kind of, I don't want to kind of say too much about what my dad thinks.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll allow him to kind of say if he wants to, but
sure.
I'm pretty sure that he feels comfortable enough me just saying that he believes, and to a large degree, I agree with him on a lot of things, but he believes that the world is being controlled pretty much by a small group of elite individuals, and these individuals are very, I guess you could just say, lack of a better way of describing them, they're satanic. I know that sounds insane and whatever, but hey,
Whoa.
whoa, you've never heard that before, Bill?
Yeah, I've heard some stuff like that. I didn't know your dad thought that, but yeah, I've heard
Yeah,
some.
I grew up knowing about that stuff. As an infant child, I knew about it.
Yeah,
So
that's a perspective that a lot of people that are very religious take.
yeah,
Almost regardless of Christian or Muslim. I think a lot of people think that.
really.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, your dad, just for the record, your
but
dad's
but he
Muslim, right?
no,
What
he's
is
not.
he?
He's kind of like nothing. He believes in God.
Okay.
When him and I were growing up, he used to call himself a Muslim. And as you know, I was atheist for a long time, and I used to try to convince him that God was a bunch of BS. And he used to always just kind of just hold on to his belief, like no. And I would tell him, I'm like, you're not even Muslim. You don't even do anything that Muslims do. You just call yourself a Muslim because you grew up in the Middle East, and that's what your parents told you.
Right.
And there's a lot of Christians like that too. I'm sure you know some. You ask them, what do you believe? They say, or what are you? They say Christian. Well, do you believe in the Bible? No. Well, you're not a Christian. Just because you were raised. I don't feel like that's concontroversial. Do you think that's controversial?
Look at you. We need to blacklist you. I'm going to start a petition right now. Hold on.
Hey,
Can you
man.
give me 30 seconds? I'm going to open a Word doc.
I I mean, I feel really anti-religion is more becoming more and more mainstream. So I think that religion um, will become a thing that, right now I can tell you, Bill, I'm Christian. I can say that out loud. I can say it on Facebook. I believe that there'll come a time that where I won't be able to say that. I'll have to keep it hush hush.
Oh, wow. You think
Yeah.
that time will be in the next 100 years, or?
100, dude, you know what? You know what's crazy is I thought that a lot of these things would take so much longer to unfold, and this is happening so fast. So, like, honestly, that's a good question. I'm inclined to say 5 to 10 years. I'm
And do you
inclined.
think within that time frame it'll just be taboo in the sense that Paul said that he believes in Jesus Christ, or Paul said that he's a Christian, and then everybody kind of laughs, or they're like, oh, he's one of those people? Or do you think it's more like, oh, Paul said he's a Christian. Okay, who do we need to talk to about that? Like, almost like persecution level versus just like, oh, because the way I see it is over the years, over the last 70 years or so, people have gradually become more secular, but it's more along the lines of just, oh, okay, well, we know a lot more now than we knew today. So, we don't necessarily need a superior being to explain the world anymore. So I think those people generally are just okay with people being religious. It doesn't seem like a bad thing per se. You
You
know what I
know
mean?
what's you know what's interesting about what you say, that it's so fascinating as I watch time march on and how quickly people forget things. Because, see, I don't want to I got a lot of these thought experiments and questions in my mind that I want to ask people, and I kind of don't want to like divulge too much of that now, but maybe it doesn't matter in a way. But that was one of the things I kind of wanted to get my finger on just a little bit, because like when I used to work at Lifetime, I used to go around asking all kind of people, and I would do these surveys, and I realized that's not like a exact survey. And when I do these surveys on Facebook, it kind of skews things, I think, a lot more, because people can see the responses that other people are giving.
Sure.
But anyway, this is what I'm getting at here, Bill. Right now, what you're saying, yeah, it's okay if a Christian wants to be a Christian, he can be Christian, right?
No, I wasn't making that argument. I was just saying that it seems to me that most people that aren't for
Right.
Christianity, they're not necessarily persecuting Christians. They're just like,
Exactly.
oh, I
Exactly.
believe that. Like,
Yes.
almost
Yes.
like,
Yes.
oh, that's a thing. Religion is a thing of the past. Now that people are enlightened, we know
Uh huh.
more. I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people approach it that way.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I feel that way too. But I think that's going to change really fast. And then when I tell people, I'm like, hey, don't you remember when you didn't have a problem with me? Like, remember like when it was okay that I was a Christian? Now all
Is
of a
that
sudden
why
I'm
you
like this
keep
bad
sending me
man.
those text messages that are like, "Hey, Bill, don't hate me, man. Don't hate me, man." Is that where that's coming from?
That's it. I feel like there's something coming that's going to cause a divide. It's going to cause a very big divide.
Hmm.
There's already a divide, as you can see, that's happening now. You see people kind of splitting. So you and I, what's interesting too about you, Bill, is you and I, we can have conversations, you know what I'm saying? Like right now. And we seem to agree on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's almost like we kind of don't, in a way. Because you've said this, you said you're more kind of left leaning. You said, right? But
Yeah, I think my policy stances tend to be more left. Like I agree with a lot of typically left policies. So universal health care, a pretty robust welfare system, social programs essentially.
okay.
Immigration, I think, needs to be reformed. But that said, that's policy. In terms of culture and do I get along with people on the left? I on my end, I can see where they're coming from, and I enjoy talking to people on the left. But what I don't do is I don't necessarily identify with that group. I don't identify with the group that just they take a very firm position on a lot of these things today, and so I don't necessarily identify with that. Just to kind of to simplify things in a way, Democrats typically want to change things, Republicans want to keep them the same. And there's this ongoing battle between those. And ultimately, the effects modify our system over time, right? And so there's benefit to both of that. But I find it easier to talk to the people that want to keep things the same. They seem a little bit more, I don't want to say rational, but a little bit more level headed and a little bit more calm. Like, yeah, well, this country, it was founded on this, and my grandfather this, and America's great, and this and that. All of those things I can agree with. Simultaneously, I think a lot of that needs to change, and it could change for the better, right? So it's easy for me to have that conversation with them. Whereas people on the left, it's almost, well, maybe a little further left, it's almost like they hate the country. And it's a weird feeling that it's like they crap on the United States. They talk about all these bad things. It's okay to want reform. And again, I want reform too. It just seems like they go a little too far, and they, by their conversations, by their writing that you read, you would think that our country is like the worst, crappiest place in the world, that we haven't made any progress on civil rights since the 60s, that, people are dying every day at the hands of the cops, the poor are suffering. All of those things are partially true. Don't get me wrong. And again, I identify with a lot of that, and that's why I would like more social programs to help it. But again, I just think they go so far that it's like, no rational person can really sit there and listen to them with a straight face, other than the fact that they are pressured into socially, just as a quick example, if we're talking about, Black Lives Matter and racism, it's almost like if you don't agree with the way Black Lives Matter is operating, boom, you're racist. It's like, what? Black Lives Matter is just a vehicle. It's a means to an end. The end, of course, is getting rid of racism, which most everybody's like, yes, let's do it. But as a vehicle, they've started a nonprofit, and it's like, well, this is how we're going to do it. And I think it's okay to say, well, I don't like racism, but I also think you're not doing it right. I'd like to do it another way. But, again, you have that conversation and they're like, well, you're one of them. It's because of your cis male white privilege, whatever. So all of that stuff plays into what I'm talking about. And again, just to recap where I started, I identify, it's easier for me to talk to and get along with the people on the right. They're just kind of easygoing, like, yeah, we need to keep the country the same. And then, which I disagree with, but it's easier to talk to them. Socially, I think the people on the left are a little bit more abrasive. They're like, well, if you don't like what I like, then you're a bigot or this or that. So yeah, my policies tend to be left, but culturally, socially, I don't tend to associate with them as easily. But I enjoy talking to both.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I've realized too. And of course, and by the way, if anybody's watching this, growing up, I can completely I'll just bring up the God thing. I completely understand atheists and agnostics because I was that way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll make, that. I was atheist for a long time, agnostic for a long time. I used to hate the United States, and I'm not even, maybe hate's a strong, yeah, hate at one point. Yeah. Definitely, I started to kind of become indifferent at one point. I was just like, well, all governments are corrupt, Then I started to kind of look around and just kind of see it, and I was just like, man, maybe the United States does a lot of things that aren't right. But if you just look at kind of the standard of living that we have, and you look at all the things that we can do and how people are trying to come over here, we're not trying to go over there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and then I started to appreciate it more. And right around the time I started to appreciate it more, that's when everyone kind of jumped on the bandwagon I used to be on. The United States is the worst thing, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating, kind of. And the thing is, I can't really judge a lot of those people because I used to be them,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't even see myself, again, for if people are watching, I'm not like, I don't even consider myself like, I guess I would consider myself a conservative now. I guess I would. And I realize that a lot of you that are watching this, the moment you hear that Paul, he's racist and he's this and I hate Paul. You know what I'm saying? But it's just not true, dude. It's not true. Have you seen those stories about people who have that in their mind and they go to like, by the way, I'm gonna say this guy's name, and I'm not pro him or anti him. I'm pretty indifferent, you know, like to me, let me put it this way, just so we're kind of clear so people understand. I kind of have a pessimistic perspective on politics in general. And I might have told you this already, Bill. The way I see it is the president of the United States is kind of like the um, general manager at Lifetime. So who's the general manager that you worked under? Like Jaime, Wally, who?
Most recently, Megan.
Okay,
Megan.
Megan. Okay, Megan. So let's say Megan. Megan is like the president of the United States in the way I see things.
Right.
Right? She can make changes at Lifetime. She can clear things. She can deny things. You know, we can go to her and ask for things. At the end of the day, though, Megan's not running the show.
Right.
When things are going to get changed, it's coming from somewhere else. Kind of like what my dad was saying.
Right.
There's people that are orchestrating things the way I see it.
Oh
So
yeah.
like I don't get behind politicians. And then a thing is I don't put all my faith in them. I don't think anybody should. You and I, we talked about this. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like never should you be in a position where you're blaming somebody for your problems all the way. And never should you be in a position where you're putting all your faith in somebody. You know what I mean? I feel like that is you, dude. Don't look at anybody else. That's one of the big differences I think between I think the left and right, in my opinion. I call it the mirror window. You know, you can always look out the window and you can look at an individual, you can look at a policy, you can look at this, that, or the other. And there may be situations where you really do have to do that. So I'm not like completely black or white. But in general, I think it's better to look in the mirror, you know? Like just look in the mirror, look at yourself before you're like judging all these people and this and that, you know? Like see like what can you do for yourself? Man, I
Right.
realize that I realize that comes off again and see the perspective of when people hear, let's say somebody say something like that, is you don't care about people. But see, the thing is when you do that kind of stuff, you actually help people more. You do better for your community when you do that. You know what I'm saying? That's why when I talk to people about, let's say, personal training, and they're like, well, I want to take care of my kids, and they're over here like can't even move and out, they barely, you know, getting sick. I'm like, well, if you took care of yourself, you could take care of them better.
Right.
I'm kind of rambling. I'm sorry, but
No, I'm following you. I
I mean,
mean,
you know how I'm passionate about that, Bill. I'm real. You know, you have the power to choose. I say that all the time. You have the
yeah,
power to choose. Choose.
it's your responsibility to get in a good workout in, Paul.
There you
Whose
go.
responsibility is it? Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I've had you and I have talked about that before, and just for in case I have no idea if anybody's watching right now, but in case anybody is watching, in general, what you're talking about is like personal responsibility versus government and social intervention to help people. And it sounds like you're more of the opinion that you have to take personal responsibility and do the best you can. Is that right?
I mean, tell me in any situation how that doesn't help things. It completely in any situation. But see, the thing is, I'm not saying we shouldn't ask for change. I'm not saying you shouldn't do anything in the government and this and that. I'm just saying start there first.
Right.
Don't
Yeah.
look out the window first. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
And I've always, you and I have talked about that before, and you know that I agree with you that even if nothing else, if you can't do anything else, you can't wait, you can't sit around and wait for the government to help you, right? You have to do it yourself, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that, and there's a lot of reasons on why that's a good strategy, even just psychologically. Even if you're not going to do well, even if the government is stacked up against you, and no matter how hard you work, you're never going to get anywhere. You will lead a more fulfilling and rewarding and productive and successful life by adopting that strategy right there. Just say, okay, I'm gonna, even if I have zero control over my situation and somebody is just pulling the strings behind the curtain, if I pretend like I have control over my life, that will lead you to a more successful life. So I agree with you 100% there. But something I've been thinking about more recently, as I just finished this book on human behavior, which is really interesting. It's called Behave by Robert Sapolsky. But it kind of made me start to think that that's true. Everything I just said is still true. But at the same time, it wouldn't hurt if we helped people see that there's light at the end of the tunnel. So, just for example, same thing. Um, let's just assume that you have a person. Let's just say it's you, Paul. You're struggling. You're lower class. You only have one parent in the house. You don't have any leadership. You don't have any guidance, that kind of thing, and you're struggling and you're trying to figure out what to do to better your life, right? One person, somebody like you, could come in and say, look, man, you need to grind it out. You don't need to worry about the government coming in to help you. You need to suck it up. You need to wake up early. You need to start reading. You need to get some skills so that you can start making money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? That's all true. But again, what we know about human psychology and human behavior is that we being humans, we're not so different from animals, man. We're not so different from monkeys and chimps and rats. When you look at our hardware and our software in here, man, you can influence and manipulate our behavior with a word. You can plant a word, two words, sounds, an environment in somebody's head, and it instantly changes everything, how they perceive the world, their current mindset, et cetera, et cetera.
You love me.
I see, now I
Huh?
love you.
Oh, I didn't.
So,
I didn't say anything. What?
so that was a subliminal message there, Paul. So my point is, I'm kind of rambling now at this point, but my point is, yeah. So if we took you and you were struggling and we told you, yeah, man, you know what? It doesn't matter. Even if you don't feel like anything's going to happen by grinding, you need to grind. Doesn't matter anything else. Just do it. And trust me, you're going to live a more fulfilling life. That sounds great, but it doesn't mean anything to you day to day whenever you wake up because you don't have any tangible results. The results that you're seeking, let's just say success, fulfillment in life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all of that stuff is not going to be tomorrow. It's going to be 5 years, 10 years, 40 years down the road. So it's very difficult to get somebody to embrace the idea of delayed gratification. You have to have something that reinforces and allows them to understand, hey, we're behind you, and when you do work really, really, really hard, there's going to be a commensurate response in terms of what you're rewarded with. So let me give a quick example. Let's say with a middle to upper class family, it's easy for them to do that for their kids, right? Like, let's say you were the kid. It's easy for your parent to say, hey, if you take out the trash, I'm going to give you $1, right? And as a kid, it's easy for you to understand that. Every time I take out the trash, mom gives me $1. Every time I clean my room, I get $5. Mom gives me that dollar. And it's easy for you to put two and two together. And then because you're middle and upper income, your parents likely have some understanding of how to save money, and they teach you those skills. And they're like, hey, look, right now you're not making a whole bunch. I know we're taking 50% away to put into savings, but in the long run, it's going to be great for you. So my point is, it's easy for those kids, the upper middle class kids, to see that and put two and two together and say, okay, if I put this off, I'll be better in the long run. The other person, it's not that easy. The low income person, the Paul that's a little bit more poor, that doesn't have as many opportunities, et cetera. It's harder for you to do that because if I'm your mom, I don't have the money to give you $1 every time you read a book. And when you do read a book, I can't objectively tell you how that's going to make your life better. So there has to be something, in my opinion, there has to be something where, yeah, we talk to kids and we tell them, look, almost no matter what, you need to pretend like nobody's going to help you. You need to grind, you need to study, you need to work hard, you need to develop skills, you need to be of value to society, and then you're going to be great. But going back, the key to me now, I used to just have that mindset, but now my mindset is more along the lines of, in addition to that, we need to give them something. I don't know what something is, but we need to have some kind of positive reinforcement that lets them know, yeah, every time you work harder, you're going to get something. I don't know if that's a government handout or whatever, but I think we need to have something that is positive reinforcement that gets people to move in the right track that it essentially incentivizes them. You know, to some extent, I'm okay. I'm very much okay. I would be a proponent of incentivizing people to do the right thing, you know, to do the right thing for themselves. Um, that sound crazy to you? I mean,
No, I'm just unclear with what the right thing is. You said do the right thing. What does that mean?
what you and I just agreed, I
Oh,
think implicitly
okay.
the right thing to do would be to wake up a little bit earlier and to read, to work hard, to show up to work on time, to look people in the eye and shake their hands. All the things that everybody knows that will make you successful. Being respectful, developing your vocabulary so that you're articulate, being a good speaker, being a good friend. All of those things that many people take for granted that make you successful in life. A lot of people don't have the same upbringing and they don't know that, you know?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're clear, and if anyone's listening, clear. I'm not, um, for one, all those things that you mentioned right now, I agree with you that those are very important. But to me, those are more superficial things. I'm talking about underlying principles that drive the direction of your life. You know what I mean? I would rather take somebody like,
Give me an example.
okay, the example is, okay, success. How would you define that anyway? What does that
Yeah,
even mean? Okay, so my
personal.
point is if I believe in, again, I'm not against, like, let's say helping and doing. I mean, look at that. You know what's funny is all those people that are like, oh, we should help. Where are you helping? Where are you volunteering? Are you donating your money? It's like these people, like they're like, you gotta give. How much of your money are you giving? I would like to compare how much I give to somebody like that that's out there saying you should give, and let's
Right,
see. I'm saying I'm not even advocating that, and I'm
right,
giving more. You know
right.
what I'm saying? So my point is to me, the principle, because like the thing is once you take it upon yourself, you have all the power. It doesn't matter anything else. Like the moment like let's just say that, like like you mentioned the psychological piece of it, you know what I'm saying? Like the moment that you're like, you know what, I didn't get that job. Let's say I applied at a job. I could look out the window. Looking out the window is looking anywhere else and looking in the mirror. And I can say, I didn't get the job because my beard. They didn't like my beard. I didn't get the job because I'm too short. I didn't get the job because I'm too tall. I didn't get the job because they didn't like me because I'm a male. I didn't, whatever. You can come up with
Right.
X, Y, Z. The thing is once you take that stance, even if it's true, even if it's true, there's no growth.
Mhm.
Nothing happens. You're going to wind up in the same situation again.
Right.
Versus if you say, you know what, they probably didn't hire me because my beard and the fact that my shirt isn't the nicest shirt, but what could I do? So I look in the mirror and I say, you know what, maybe I can brush up on my posture, like you said. Maybe, but see, you get to those things that I said are secondary from that understanding first.
Right.
You don't get there by just, see, I think that's like to say, okay, like have a good vocabulary, have a good posture. Don't get me wrong, but that's kind of, what do they say, leading the carriage in front of the horse? No, first you say, you look at yourself first, then you can. And see, I probably come off like I don't care about changing systems, and that's not what it is. I have a really good thought experiment for this too.
Mhm.
Maybe I can ask you kind of how you think. um, I'm all for that. And maybe looking in the mirror has something to do with changing the system. Because then you're like, you know what? But what, in my experience, what I'm seeing is just people are just looking outwardly and not looking inwardly. And I feel like when you look inwardly, you're going to win no matter what. I don't care. I don't care what happens.
I
It's
don't
just a win.
disagree. I don't disagree with
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
you said.
Hey, do you want me to ask you this thought question, Bill?
Yes.
Okay. If anyone, and maybe I'm probably going to ask this again. Okay, so this is what has me, and just so we're clear too, I'm not completely on one side or the other with this one.
Okay.
Um, Okay, this is an observation that I made over the years. And okay, let's do this. Hypothetically speaking, and I probably asked you this, but hypothetically speaking, let's assume that the NBA is not completely fair. Okay, let's assume that big markets like LA, Boston, New York, they tend to get more favorable calls. Let's just assume that's true, okay? Because they're big markets. If their team goes to the playoffs or whatever, they're gonna get more views. There's more marketing money, blah blah blah. And let's say that because of that, officials are chosen um, when they tend to favor those teams. So there is an unfair advantage there. Let's say if you're a Laker, you have an unfair advantage. It's not completely rigged. It's just, you know what, if you're on the Laker team, you're probably going to get more favorable calls. If you're on the Spurs, which was like a smaller, market team, you're probably, they're not going to want you to go to the playoffs. So I
Right.
remember watching the Spurs, like when I was younger and just thinking, it's not fair. It's not fair. They need to complain. They need to complain and just fight the system and tell them it's not fair. And I just kept thinking, and Greg Popovich never, he just kept saying, he would always put it on the team. I would watch a game where it's obvious the officiating was completely blown, but he didn't blame the officials. He didn't blame the league. He just kept put. So my point is, and see, I want to try to box you into a corner. Really, is what I want to do. But really, I know there is no like. But the question is as a team. Let's say if you're on the team or as an individual, should you spend more of your time combating the officiating system, the NBA, or should you reflect on yourself, becoming a better basketball player and making a more cohesive and just overall better basketball team? Where should you put your energy more if you had to pick? You see what I mean?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things that you'd have to specify on that question. Like, is it
Sure.
in the short term, in the long term, and then uh, most importantly, for what? Like, is it? Are you answering this question in order to win championships, in order to win more games, in order to increase personal growth of your players, et cetera, et cetera?
The objective is to win a championship. That's the ultimate goal. That's what you're after. Should you devote time in changing the system, or should you devote time into making your team better?
Gotcha.
Or what would you do?
Is that to win a championship this year, or is that to win a championship in 10 years?
That's a good question. Definitely not in 1 year, but it's definitely going to take some. It's going to, let's just say, 10 years.
Yeah, I think the longer term you make that question, the more, I guess, in short, to answer your question, which one would I do? I think in general, you're going to get more bang for your buck focusing on personal development. So less on the rules of the league, the referees, because to a large extent that those things are out of your control. There's nothing to a significant degree that you can do about that. If you're the referee and you're in the pocket for LA, you're going to do whatever you're going to do, man, unfortunately. So, in the short term, it's better to focus on what I can do. Again, if you change the question, though, in the long term, what's the best option? In long term, the best option is probably to change the system, because if you never change the system, you're just a hamster in the wheel that's like, okay, every year we're going to be grinding this out without actually stepping back and looking at the big picture and like, oh, wow, okay. I mean, let me just use an extreme example. Wow, okay, look, man, I'm noticing a pattern. LA, New York are getting all these calls. I'm going to dig into that a little bit. Oh, it looks like these referees are getting paid a little bit extra on the side. Oh, it looks like this referee is the cousin of this guy. You have to analyze the system. And once you analyze the system, you can call those things to people's attention, and you can say, hey, this thing needs to change so that we're all as fair as we can get. Nothing's ever fair, and the nature of a ref is subjectivity. We know that. But I'm just saying that you can eliminate some of those things so that in the long term, you have a much better chance of winning championships. So all that's to say, in the long term, I would focus probably more on the system. In the short term, you need to focus on the personal level, but there always needs to be a balance of the two. If you just focus on one and not the other, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah. And of course, I don't think it's one or the other.
Right.
I do believe that leading the horse leads the carriage would come, let's focus on our team, but secondary, let's look at the league. And I do think that it's important to make changes like that. Like, I mean, we're talking about the NBA, but the NBA is an analogy, I guess, for what's
Right.
happening. So like for example, like the replay, I think that's great. The replay, that was an example of something that they brought in that has made it more fair.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so
I mean, I
I
think
do.
you're making,
What was
sorry.
that?
I was going to say, I think you're drawing a parallel between society and our current situation, right? Like the analog would be the San Antonio Spurs would be like people that are disadvantaged in society versus the New
Yeah,
York Knicks might be your white male, somebody
yeah.
like,
But look who won a championship.
right, the Spurs
The
won.
Spurs did. Yeah. So the thing is like I said, the game's not rigged so that they can never win. They can win. The
Yeah.
Spurs won. Actually, watching them kind of taught me a little bit about that because I was like, wow, that's amazing. They could be complaining this whole time, all the time, but they just like you said, just kept pushing through, and then they overcame it.
Well, I think to push back a little bit, you have to look at those things again in the big picture. Whenever you're doing statistics, you have to look at the average, but you also have to look at the extremes. And so, if you point it out and you're like, well, look, they won a championship. Well, great. How many have they won in the last 50 years? And then once you start looking at that, how many have they won in the last 100 years? I'm just making shit up. I don't even know if the NBA is 100 years old. But you get my point. Like
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
look at that data, that now you're starting to see, okay, well, yeah, they did win two by grinding it out and focusing on themselves. But in the last 100 years, they've only won two. What do you know? So yeah, I agree. I agree with you on so many levels. I agree psychologically, it is better for you, and it's almost the only way that one should operate their life. In other words, if you could just pick one or the other and you could just focus on yourself, even if you are a hamster on a wheel and the whole system is rigged against you, that hamster on the wheel is going to be a happy person. There's a lot, there've been a lot of advancements on what we know about what makes people happy. And essentially it's having a purpose and having self-control, not self-control, having a feeling like you control the outcome of your life. And that's what I was touching on earlier. If I do this, if I work hard, if I do this, I'm going to get this. And even if that doesn't happen every time, sometimes if I work hard enough, I'm going to get a little bit of that. And that feeling, that thought process has to be there for you to be happy and for it to work. And again, going back to data and statistics, that will work. What we're talking about, that mindset, that'll work for a handful of people no matter what. Your Navy SEALs, your Bill Gates, there's certain people on this world that are programmed. It doesn't matter what happens. You could stack the whole deck of cards against them. They don't care. They'll just keep on banging their head into the wall. Okay, I'm going to make Microsoft. I'm going to make this whatever. And they're going to be successful. And if they're not successful, they'll be happy just knowing that, well, I just grinded it out and I tried every single day. I really tried. Those people will be happy. Those aren't your normal person. Those are not anywhere near your normal person. If that was your normal person, everybody would be successful. you know the normal human being is very, very, very responsive, and for good reason, evolutionarily, is very responsive to external stimuli. If you keep on going to a caveman, if you keep on going to a bush and there's no berries there, why would you keep on going to that bush? That's stupid. A rat can figure that out. All these other mammals figure that out, and it's ingrained in them. They don't have to have conversations about it. They just stop doing it. The second time, the third time, the fourth time they go to the bush, they're like, this bush sucks. I'm going somewhere else. And it's the same thing with a lower income person or somebody that has the cards stacked up against them. If you just keep on trying, you keep on going to the bush and there's no berries, you eventually just stop going to the bush. That's a stupid example, but you get my point. They need every now and then, even if it's like once every 5 times, they need a berry in the bush. So
Hey,
again, I'm
hey,
okay with,
hey, man, I'm all for that, dude.
okay,
Get, but
don't take my berries. for
Hey,
my
okay, so
books.
but the issue is, and again, this is people are so sensitive to this type of talk, but I'll say it anyway.
They,
There, and I'm guilty of this. Everything I say, like you and I, we talked about it. I think we talked about, what was it, just last night? Like I contradict myself all the time. I'm full of it. The more I analyze myself, the more I realize that I'm just not a good person on so many levels. You know what I'm
I've been
saying?
thinking that for the longest time,
Yeah,
Paul.
yeah, yeah.
Glad,
But
glad one was
it's my opinion that and this is gonna. I'm not trying to come off like, ooh, look at me. I'm so humble, or I'm so. My point, in my experience at least, the more that emotionally intelligent somebody is, the more aware they are about their own psyche, the more that they realize this phenomenon happening within themselves. Okay,
hmm
what were we talking about, Bill? What were we just talking about? I forgot. What were we talking about?
Well, I gave a really long analogy about a bush and a berry and
Yeah,
how
okay. I remember now. Okay. So when you said that, I automatically thought, I do in general, I do like typically the minimum I can to achieve a certain result.
yeah,
I don't like doing anything extra, you
yeah. Why
know?
would you?
So like if I, let's just to go to your bush berry analogy, if I have to walk farther to get a berry, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to go to the bush that's right next to my house or whatever, right? But the thing is let's say berries are given to me. I'm not going to want to go out and get berries for myself. You're giving me berries. So
Yeah,
the problem is in a way, and again, I know this comes off really bad, but it's the truth. You can see this happening with people. There's a difference. Like you want to be compassionate and you want to help people. At the same time, you got to be very careful about enabling. Like that's what I realized about personal training. I realized that I'm not helping anyone when I just give it away to give it to them.
yeah.
Man, I've given personal training out so many times for free because I thought I was helping people, but I really wasn't. I was actually hurting them. I
You
was
and I
doing them a
agree.
disservice.
You and I agree on that, and you know that we agree on that. We've talked about that a lot about valuing yourself and the services that you
Right.
provide.
But
We've
what, what
also
I'm
talked
what I'm
about
getting
how
at, okay, go on.
I'll just make this point real quick. We've also talked about, and you know that I think that using my berry analogy, it is not a good thing for you to consistently over time give somebody the berry because the
Right.
person doesn't feel good about themselves. People need to find meaning in their lives. And me sitting on my ass on the couch playing Call of Duty and you just giving me berries does nothing for me in the long term. In the short term, if I'm starving, if I'm hungry, if I haven't had a berry to eat in a year because I'm too poor, yeah, it's good for me, but it's good to a certain extent. And so just to be clear real quick on my little berry analogy, my berry analogy wasn't let's have somebody sit on the couch and give them berries. My berry my berry my idea was if somebody is doing the work and they're walking to the bush and they're not getting berries, whereas Paul is walking to the bush and he's getting berries. Well, that other person who's walking to the bush just as far as Paul, everything else is equal and not getting berries. I feel like every now and then we could, as a government, we could subsidize that and make sure that that person gets a berry, even if in reality he wouldn't be getting a berry. Does that make sense?
It
He's
does make sense. It
he's
makes
still
sense.
doing all the work. I'm just saying there are a lot of people out there, and I guess more specifically, what I'm talking about the gaps in our system, the gaps in the US government and our infrastructure, and how there are lots of people who work really hard and they never make it, man. They're living paycheck to paycheck. They're just cruising and they don't know a lot of what we know about moving up in the hierarchy.
Do, but the thing is, like, okay, like I get that to a large degree, but at the same time, like the level of knowledge that we have available at our fingertips. I mean, so many people are willing to just take you under their wing and help you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure if anyone wanted to make money or get in business, there'd be like so many people that have made it that would say, hey, I'll mentor you. But how many people are going to those people asking for their help? How
Yeah.
many people are going, let's say, online and researching that stuff,
Right.
empowering themselves?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, they need to know
so
where to go too, right? Like you and I have talked about that too. The issue isn't information. You brought up information and how much information there is. Well, that's actually the problem. Is there's too much information. 20 years ago, it would have been the opposite. You could have been sitting there, or before the internet, maybe 25 years ago, you could have been there and you could have been the hardest worker in the room. And you, for whatever reason, you just couldn't figure out, like, damn, who do I need to talk to? What do I need to do? Fast forward to 2020, 2021, it's the complete opposite problem. All of the information, you're right, all of the information's there. You can figure out who you need to find. You can find those people. You could even send them a message on Facebook Messenger. Some person that you never would have had contact with, now you can talk to them like that, and you can start getting on the right track. But I would argue that it's the opposite problem. You don't know what's good information and you don't know what's bad
you
information.
know how you know, Bill? And maybe this is, huh? I mean, you know a tree by its fruits. You're not going to ask some dude off the street, hey, give me some business advice. Like I said, just find, like, there's tons of people that are successful business owners. If anyone happens to be watching and you're a business owner, I mean, if somebody came to you and said, hey, teach me what you did, give me the skills or whatever, of course, man, like who's gonna, and again, I'm not against helping people, but I do think that it can hurt them. You can hurt people by, of course, on the surface, the intention is good. You do it because you care, but at the end of the day, you're actually hurting that person. Um,
And
so
that touches, can I just real quick,
yeah, yeah,
that touches on a point on where I do tend to agree with people on the right. I think people on the left tend to underestimate what you just said, the extent to which you can damage somebody, that you can hurt somebody, that you can set somebody behind by helping them too much. I think the thought process is, hey, look, we need to help out some people that are having a tough time. Worst case scenario, we help them out and we can't help enough people. Well, no, that's not the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is you help people too much and they become reliant and they live unfulfilled lives. They're not contributing to society. They provide no value to their family, their friends, their kids. They're I don't want to say they're worthless. Nobody's worthless, but the reality is, to be a functioning, cohesive society, everybody has to do something, right? You have to feed your family, you have to make money, you have to do these things. So uh, the worst thing is not, oh well, nothing bad happens. The worst thing is something really, really, really bad happens. So again, I tend to sympathize more with the right when they say, now we need to be careful with, oh, sorry, I thought I heard something. We need to be careful with how much we help people. I'm all for helping people. You people watching this will probably know, you and I in general, where we come from, and that we are very charitable and oriented toward giving back. So that context, I think, can be kind of important when you hear me say something like, oh well, we need to draw a line where we help people. At the end of the day, you have to. Resources are not unlimited. We have to, and it's easier to do. It's easier to say than it is to do. I'll admit that 100%. It's easy for me to say, hey, we need to draw a line. We can't just give unlimited food. We can't provide unlimited housing. It's simple. Sign this piece of paper right here. But if I had to look you in the eye and tell you, hey, man, no more food. We've been giving you food for 6 months now. Time's up. I don't know if I could do that, man. I really don't. That's a tough thing to do. So it's easier said than done. It's easy to sit behind a keyboard and do this, but it's something that has to be done, and we need to do it in the most humane way possible, I think.
yeah, yeah. And this is reminding me of the NBA again. I'm just thinking, in time, you kind of figure out what works, what doesn't work, and you implement changes. So, one thing I was thinking about too, you said people who, let's say, everything is kind of given to them, um, they don't have purpose in their life. One of the things it does too is it really damages their self-esteem and their self-worth,
Yeah.
because like you said, they're not contributing. So it makes you feel, you said,
Hello.
hello.
We have a guest.
Oh, wow. The legend Esme. Oh,
Yes.
um,
She
it's
made
not about them
it.
being worthless, because to your point, I really believe everyone is equal. Everyone is completely different. And like, for example, you might be way better than me, Bill, at sports and smarter than me at certain things, but I have my own things too. Let's just imagine. Okay. So, in a way, when you take all of those things, I believe everyone is equal. Everyone is completely different. But when you don't do anything and you're not contributing, that hurts your self-worth. You feel worthless. You're
Yeah.
not worthless. You're completely valuable. It's about you believing that you can do it, you know?
Yeah.
And again, I can't judge anyone because I would do the same thing. I'm not even against, like, the thing is too is okay, you and I, we both worked at Lifetime, right? So you got paid based off your output. You're basically, you got paid based off, I should say, production. So you could work 2 hours and you're extremely productive in that 2 hours, and you know, or you could work 40 hours and you did nothing. You got paid on your production. So,
Yeah.
dude, where am I going with this? My point is I can work in either or.
Hmm.
I kind of favor getting paid for production. You see, I can live in a society where things are just handed to me. That's fine. I'm very comfortable. I get comfortable like no matter what I'm doing. But if I'm in, and this may not apply to me specifically, but what's the incentive if you're a trainer and you're just going to get paid the same? No matter all the other trainers, you get paid the same.
Right.
Are you really going to hustle as hard to go get new clients? Are you really going to put yourself out there to be vulnerable and talk to people? Are you really going to strive to make better programs and get your clients results? You see, like when you get rewarded, like you said, for your production, what it does is it kind of incentivizes you to do more.
Yeah.
So my point is, like everyone's saying, like, oh, like they kind of want it to where they kind of get rid of this capitalist system that we have. Okay. I mean, I can live in another system. I'm fine. I'm happy. Whatever, dude. Do I think that's good? I don't think that's good because, and see, the thing is, you said this the other day. You said with every action, there's a consequence. At the surface, it seems like it's good.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, yeah, that's not fair. This guy's making all the money. You mentioned Bill Gates or whoever, XYZ. It's no fair. Let's give it to everybody else. That sounds good at the surface. But ultimately, I think that's not good in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. The long run is the key. Whenever you add a chronological component to this talk, everything changes. It's just like anything else, and that comes back to what I mentioned about earlier about delayed gratification. There's a lot of research that basically shows the people that are most successful are the people that can delay their gratification. It's that mindset where right in this moment, right now, I need to be satisfied. That's what drives people into the hole. So if you can pull that off, if you can adopt that mindset in whatever way, whatever you need to adopt that mindset, it will pay off. So yeah, incentivizing behavior like that, I'm totally okay with it. I mean, just like you said, you have to have some kind of incentive. But touching on what I said earlier, um, I'm okay with the government stepping in to some degree and helping incentivize that. People still need to put in the work, of course, but the problem for me is whenever people that are not doing well are busting their butt and they're not getting the same results as some other people to a certain extent, because there are a lot of successful people too who bust their butt. Maybe they start a business and they fail and they lose a lot of money. I'm not saying we need to catch every single person who fails. In my Barry analogy, I said 1 out of 5 times, right? So maybe the guy who started 5 different businesses, okay, man, your fifth one tanked. Hey, well, at least you're trying to contribute to society, man. You're opening all these businesses, you're creating jobs. We're going to give you a hand. We're not going to help you every single time you fail. You knew there was risk in opening a business, et cetera. So
Dude,
I'm okay with
that's
that. I think incentivization is huge. I think we need to incentivize good. I think we need to incentivize the right thing, doing the right thing, because I'm sure you would agree. You would probably not continue to grind it out if you got the same results every time, for people. And, I don't know, I'm probably in a different situation since I see a lot of patients that are lower income. But a lot of my patients, man, these guys, I'll just give you a quick example. The noodles, ramen
Ramen
noodles.
noodles. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's made by a company called Maruchan, right? We have a contract with them, so a lot of their workers come in. Man, these guys are working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, guys and gals, I should say. A very low skilled job, but they're working 72 hours a week, right? They're not making much money. I don't know. They haven't given me their hourly wage, but they're not making a lot. For that person, they're kind of doing the right thing, man. They are working, 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 but they're not driving a BMW. There's something missing between how hard they're working and how successful they are. Maybe they're spending too much. I'm not saying it's not their fault. Maybe they're spending too much money. Maybe they're not investing. Maybe this, maybe that, et cetera, et cetera. But I would like to see it where people like that, we could help give them the skills they need to be more successful. Because that, to me, that creates a ripple effect. Let's say we just helped one person that works at Maruchan, right? All of a sudden they're like, hey man, I've been working 72 hours for the last year. And then, now I heard about this government program where, since I've been working really hard and doing this and doing that, they're giving me some resources to teach me how to invest. Or they're giving me I don't know.
Dude, no, no, no. Yeah, yeah.
I'm making crap up, man. But if we
Uh,
if we could incentivize that, like, hey, you are working really hard, you're doing all the right things. We're going to give you something. It doesn't have to be money. Again, it could be information, it could be resources, it could be, hey, we're going to give you this mentor. We created this organization or this part of the government, and Paul Rizai is in charge. Paul Rizai is going to come to your work. He's going to spend 8 hours with you one day, and he's going to teach you how to invest. He's going to teach you how to open your own business. He's going to teach you whatever, whatever, whatever.
wow,
So
that's worth like 100K right there.
exactly.
Wow.
Anyway, my point is, I'm totally okay with doing something like that because, like you said earlier, a lot of those people, all they need is somebody like you to come along and teach them. And if they were if they knew what to do and they knew who to ask, they'd probably come to you and say, hey, Paul, what are you doing, man? Because I see, you're young, you're 37, you've got your own, 38 now. You've got your own house, you have your own company, you do this,
Incredibly good looking.
good looking, funny, everything. And so if you could just connect those people and help them. And then from that point, again, I'm not saying we need to give them all of the berries in the world. I'm just saying you just gave them a huge resource. At some point, it's got to be on them. Like, okay, you've got it. Now you need to take off and you need to do this thing. Keep on working your 72 hours a week. Keep on doing this, keep on doing this. But now you've got some resources. Now you know what it's going to take to make some money and be successful. And just real quick, because I feel like I keep on talking about money as if that's the end all be all. It's not the end all be all. It's probably obvious. You and I have talked about that before, but I guess if anybody's watching, I'm not all about money, but you can't do anything without money. If you have a family, you need to be, like you said earlier, if you can't take care of yourself, if physically, mentally, if you can't feed your family, you're in bad shape, man. So there's a minimum amount of money you need to make to feed your family and to do those things. Beyond that, yeah, you don't need a Porsche, but you might need a car, or you might need to be able to pay for public transportation. When you can't pay for that, bad things start to happen. You start to move downhill. So it would be nice if we could help the people that are really putting in the work and really trying to do everything they can, help them get to where they would like to be.
Yeah. Yeah, man. These topics really fascinate me. I'm very interested in this whole thing, and you know that because every time you and I get together, it somehow turns into this. It's funny because you and I were going to have a conversation, and it just immediately turned into this. So
For 20 minutes, Paul, you manipulated me.
no, I think we've been talking longer. I think 55, 58.
This is like that one time where we started talking about religion in your kitchen, and it was like 10 o'clock. I just came home from work, and then I go to bed at 2 o'clock because we're
Hey,
talking about
man.
Jesus.
Oh, dude, I'm super. If you, I mean, like principles and like underlying mechanisms that cause these kind of big outwardly changes I'm just so interested in. And that's why, um, and because I've seen it from my own life, dude. Because I used to be that way, dude. I used to look out the window too, and I used to think a lot of different ways. And when I started to change my thinking, I found that it really helped me. That's why I'm so passionate about it. Because like when I'm like, hey man, like it's not about this or this. It's about you. Like you can do this. You can do it. I'm
Yeah.
telling you. Like I'm not special. Like people sometimes when I tell them certain things, like you mentioned religion, and I talk about praying, and then people say, "Well, Paul, that's because it's you. It's something about." I'm like, "No, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not special. You can do it too." I know that you don't believe in that kind of stuff, but if I just say, you can do it, dude. You can do it too. Try it. You know what I mean?
Well, to tie things back into our point earlier, in a way, it doesn't even really matter whether prayer is legit or not, because just the process of doing that
That
will
makes it legit, Bill.
that makes it legit. The
It's
process in itself makes it legit. And that's the whole thing. It's just like what we were talking about with trying hard. Like, again, whether or not you have control of your life doesn't matter. If you put it in the confines, in the process, and focus on the process, okay, I don't care what's going to happen. I'm just going to focus on the process because that's all I can control. Boom, you're going to be happier. You're going to be more
Dude.
successful. And it's the same thing with prayer. And like you said, even though I don't believe in prayer personally, I am 100% for it because I know it's going to be effective
It works.
if you take it seriously and if you do it as it's supposed to be done. It's kind of subjective, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, for
if you're
sure.
sincere
And,
with it, you don't just like BS it and like, oh, okay, I'm going to close my eyes and yeah, I want to be rich. Yeah, that's not how it works.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it takes a certain kind of person, Bill, I think, to admit certain things like that. Even though you don't believe in it, you can at least admit that, at least on a certain level, there are good fruits from it.
Oh,
So
100%, dude. I kind of jokingly, but not jokingly, tell people that even though I don't believe in God or I think religions are kind of convenient to explain a lot of things, I don't know that we could live without it. I feel like it's probably the singular most important factor behind the United States being what it is, behind all of these countries being what they are. I mean,
man,
if you look back in time, man, humans, just like any other animal, we are so tribalistic. We're very, very social creatures, and we form these little tribes, countries, whatever you want to say. For us to be able to cooperate like this, it takes something to bring
there's
us all together. It takes something. And so for us to create, well, again, this is just my perspective, but to create a religion, to have a God or whatever that says, hey, this is how it's going to be done. And then so it changes the entire narrative from Paul coming and knocking on my door and saying, hey, MF, you stole my goat, and then I'd say, well, who gives a crap? You're just Paul Rezai. But if you say, hey, look, God created this playbook, and I'm going to show you the Bible here. God has this playbook that we all need to live by. Then you can get some support. So it's not just Paul saying it. Now it's Paul and all of the neighbors saying, yeah, look, it says it in Genesis, whatever. You can't just steal somebody's goat, or you can't just sleep with somebody's wife, or you can't murder somebody. We have to have these common moral principles for us all to cohere together. And so I
dude,
don't think
dude.
people argue, atheists, agnostics, people like me argue that, well, we can do all of those things. You don't have to have religion is very convenient and it does this and it does that, but you don't need that. We're smart enough, we can figure this out. We can just take all of the good things from religion and just omit the bad. Yeah, that's a nice hypothetical experiment to run, but the fact is that it hasn't happened. The fact is that everything that we have is based on religion. And so there's something really, really, really powerful about stories and religion that gets everybody behind it. And it's like, okay, this is how we're going to do things. So in a lot of way, that doesn't bode well for the world just kind of gradually getting less and less secular.
I would love to have a conversation, Bill, because I'm very passionate about religion and
Yeah.
God, and I believe that there's truth there. And remember, being open-minded is being willing to follow the evidence where it leads, regardless of how it makes you feel. So I do believe that, and we'll finish up this conversation, but I was having a conversation with one of the trainers at Lifetime, and I think I might have told you this, and I have several conversations like this, but I said, I was basically trying to get him to confirm some kind of objective reality. And you know what's interesting too is that post that you made about objective reality, and from what I saw in the comments, it was like almost no one was acknowledging objective reality. So he was basically not giving me any straight answers. So I said, "This desk, is this desk here?"
Oh yeah.
And he said, "No." And I said, "Why do you act like it is? You walk around the desk. If it's not here, you do everything as if this desk is here. So
Right.
I don't care if it doesn't exist on one hand. It may be true what he's saying, but it does exist
Yeah.
because it's there. And that might seem really weird for a lot of people, that I might not be losing some people with that. The bottom line is, I may agree with you that the desk doesn't exist, but it does. And you pretend like it doesn't, but you act as if it does. And the same thing is true with morality. All these people are saying, well, morality is just a human innovation and it's just this and that, but it's there. You can't get
Right.
away from it, dude.
Yeah.
And anyway, I guess I'll end this as I believe that morality comes from a standard that we all subconsciously at least acknowledge and for the most part agree on,
Hmm.
and that's outside of us. So it's not like, well, that's Bill's opinion or Paul's opinion.
Right.
Yes, there's much of it is subjective, but at the end, and I use math as kind of a way of describing this. Is math is there. There's a lot of different ways to look at math and formulate math and express math, but math is a real thing. Well, you sent me a meme the other day that said, right? Did you not?
Yeah.
Anyway, okay,
Yeah.
man.
I agree with you, man. 100%. Yeah.
No,
There's
you
a lot
don't,
of talk
because
these
I'm
days.
saying I'm saying that it's objectively true. You're saying
Yeah.
that it's not, and that it's basically just a convenient thing that people are praying and the result is good, but it's not true. I'm saying that both. I'm saying that it's literally real and true.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that you have no way of proving it. I have no way of proving
Dude,
otherwise.
tune in next time, Bill.
All
I'm
right.
making a video on my 3 favorite pieces of evidence.
Okay,
Um,
Paul. Until next time,
Hey,
man.
and Bill, I really liked your comment on the evidence for God. Remember, I called you and I said, "Hey, man, I want to hear your evidence."
I told you I haven't been getting on Facebook, buddy.
Fine.
All I'm just for the record, because people might see that and they might be like, well, I saw you made a post the other day. What I do is I take interesting things that I read or watch and then I post them and I might make a brief little comment, but I never hit my notifications button. I never scroll down. I got tired of that. It's all just, nobody actually talks and has a good conversation. It's just everybody.
That's
Yeah.
why I'm here with you, Bill.
I know. And so I like stuff like this. I'm willing to talk about any of that stuff in person and conversation, but it's a waste of my time. And it's my fault. I realize that over the course of a day, you get on and you're scrolling for like 5 minutes, and then before you know it, you're like typing this thing, and it's been half an hour, and you're like, I just wasted effing half an hour on this stupid thing. I'm not changing the person's mind. This is more constructive. So anyway, for the record, I haven't made any comments on other people's stuff. I don't do anything. All I do is post it and then goodbye. Anybody who wants to check it out, cool. If you want to comment it on it and go back and forth with other people, cool. I'm just not getting in on that. So anyway,
Bill, it was a good conversation. I'm glad that we got to do this, and maybe we can do it again in the future.
I'd
If
love
it,
to. Let's do it.
if anyone's listening, one of my ideas was to kind of let people hop in if they wanted to hop in. So in the future, if you ever see me engaging with somebody and you want to join the conversation, I'm thinking maybe I'll allow 1 to 2 more people hop in. So the way that would look is Bill and I are talking, and then I'll give you the ID, and then there would just be another box, and you'd be talking with us. Um, and that's it, Bill. Thank you, good sir. You're a good man. I appreciate you.
Thanks, buddy. Have a good night.
God bless you, Bill.
God bless you, Paul.